Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my League Start plans, the Spirit Walker Beast Master. It's all about taming a unique beast and making it deal all the damage. Hopefully we can get some clips of a monkey one-shotting a monkey. I think that would just be awesome. Now, as for League starting this character, Tame Beast does not become available until level 22 with a level 7 skill gem. That means we got to level with something else, and in my opinion, that means we should level with whatever is the strongest thing to get to playing the build we actually want to play as quickly as possible. And for my preparation, looking at everything, that's just Twister. Twister is insanely strong for leveling, and so I went ahead and showcased a Twister run all the way from level 0 up until Act 3, the second lab. Now, you might be thinking, Act 3, the second lab, that's not level 22, that's like level 30-something. Why did you want to go that far if you were saying we could get the companion gem at level 22? And that's for the simple reason of I am not confident the character will work or function very well if we try to swap right at level 22. The reason being is, if you look at the passive tree, level 22 is just enough passives to get you out to this initial companion wheel, get trusted kinship, and get like 1 or 1.5 wheels of companion nodes that are nearby, which there aren't that many, and you've spent about 16 travel passives to do so, which means your tree at that point is going to be very weak. You're like 60% travel nodes and 40% damage nodes. There's a high chance you try to swap then, and your character's just going to be not very strong for the content, and you're going to stalemate your progression. So I think it makes a lot more sense to path or go and just use the OP leveling, cruise through Act 2, get through that early Act 3, get your second lab, and then when you swap, not only is your tree going to be able to have more like 60 to 70% of your passives being like actual damage useful stats, because the thing is you don't end up traveling that much more. You have a lot more points to grab the nearby damage scaling. But then also then you will have not only the unique tame, and you'll be able to tame the monkey at this point, which I think is going to be one of the best early game unique boss tames. You'll also have the bear companion, and you have good spots to get some good rare companions for things like the haste aura and some other beneficial mods. I think ultimately it'll just work a lot better, a lot smoother to hold off till Act 3. That's what I would recommend. Not saying you can't try to swap right in Act 2. You can. I just think there is some risks involved where it just might not function too well right out the gate. And I want to think it makes sense to hold off a little bit longer to make that swap. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay of the leveling. For those of you who are wondering about Twister leveling, I can basically break it down for you on how this progression works. It's actually pretty simple. You get Whirling Slash right out the gate from Huntress. You pick it up when running to the Miller. And then your level 1 gem is Twister. And that's going to be your whole gameplay up until Act 3, essentially, with a few additions that I will mention here. Addition number 1 is you'll grab a Frost Bomb in your early game. Only use this up until about Lachlan, because you will need to keep getting int to level it up, and it just ends up being not worth the time spent to put down. By the time you spend putting down Frost Bomb, you could have like already killed the boss type of thing, and eventually it'll keep requiring more and more int that you don't have in order to make it work on higher level enemies. So just use Frost Bomb initially for some damage, like doing the Witch, doing those early act bosses like the Rust King and the Draven and the Asinia, those sorts of Act 1 bosses. Also, additionally, on top of that, I hated the idea of doing this, but it is fairly worth it to do so, which is to use Parry plus Fangs of Frost as your first level 3 gem. The reason for doing this is Twister gets insane damage addition if it ever picks up a ground effect. It gets a bunch of gain damage, and it basically feels like you're dealing double, triple damage. I don't think it's quite that much, but it feels worlds stronger. The thing is, how do you get access to this ground effect? Well, by Act 2, you can get things like ice-tipped arrows, and you can get the support gem Frost Nexus as your support gem level 2, the first one you get initially when you get to Act 2. But in Act 1, you don't have access to this. So the way we get chilled ground early on is via parry with Fangs of Frost. It's pretty simple. Whenever a boss spawns in, most of their initial attacks are all parryable. Start off with a parry, instantly go to Fangs of Frost. This will give you chilled ground that lasts for like 4 or 5 seconds. and then do your whirling slash twister. So just a showcase of how this fight would start off. If a boss was spawning here, I would do twister, twister, twister. These just last forever until you either move out of them or you spend a twister to send out additional attacks. So basically you'd sit here, you'd be chilling, the boss would be spawning in. The boss would then go to swing at you. You would just hold parry. You can hold it as long as you want. Once they hit you, that'll end the parry. You'll see a red dot proc on the enemy, and then you proc Fangs of Frost, which is a spear attack that basically creates a bunch of chill ground, at which point you would then release your twisters, and you'd go for a couple more rotations. Twister, 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 twister. Or sorry, whirling slash, twister. Whirling slash, twister. You get the idea. It's a bit of a combo, but the amount of damage you deal early is substantial, and it's a lot more powerful than most other leveling setups that I tested. Aside from that, gameplay going through the rest of the zones, it basically boils down to, is there a few, like a decent pack of enemies? Whirling slash, twister, whirling slash, twister is pretty much what it ends up being for that Act 1. Now, I have linked in the description that leveling run, so you can kind of look through how I do the gameplay of this character, and you can see how to do it. It's something where I'd recommend maybe doing at least one practice run on. The difference between the first time I tried to do this and the second time I played it was worlds different, of like just kind of learning how the combination works. And that knowledge will make you like straight up twice as fast between the two runs. So doing at least one practice of Act 1 and early Act 2 is a good idea in my recommendation. Now, once you get to Act 2 and you get this initial Frost Nexus gem, which you get from the first zone in Act 2, the little war camp, there's a chest that guarantees a level 2 support gem. Then it's all about using your first level 5 gems on Barrage, which is in the bow category here, and Ice-Tipped Arrows. What this is Ice-Tipped Arrows, when you proc it, it lets your next 4 projectile attacks have 100% like conversion to cold damage, which then allows your damage to consistently chill, then proccing the Frost Nexus chilled ground, which then gives you the big multiplier on your twister damage, and you'll just be shattering a bunch of things. But number 2, whenever you want to unleash a more lethal barrage of damage, like let's say there's a boss or there's just a ton of enemies on screen, on screen, then you want to use Barrage, which means your next projectile attack will be like repeated multiple times, which gives you way more tornadoes than you would get otherwise, and it's a really big burst DPS or big screen clear. Now, while you're leveling this character through Act 2, if you're doing Ice-Tipped Arrows, 1/send, 1/2/send, that's probably how you want to play it most part. You don't have to go full combo on every single pack. That's just complete overkill. It's mostly going to be /send, send a twister, /send a twister. That's kind of how I'd recommend doing the gameplay. Now, on this tree, you'll notice we have the Amazon Ascendancy. This is just me trying to showcase, hey, you're going to grab your Ascendancy points. Don't grab the Amazon Ascendancy. You're actually going to be grabbing the Spirit Walker companion nodes, companion bear, and then the second lab will be the unique tame, and we'll go tame the monkey. That's my rough game plan. I will update this when we get the ability to select the Spirit Walker Ascendancy in PUB and Mobalytics, but as for right now, that's why the early game showcases this. It's just representing, hey, grab your labs, they're important, they're going to give your character more power, don't forget to do these things. Even though you may be thinking, okay, Predatory Instinct's a really strong node, the Bear Companion is fairly decent on its own right because it procs Intimidate and Armor Break, which are both decent helps for additional damage. So it's maybe not as good as Predatory Instinct, but let's put it this way. I could have done this run no Ascendancy, and I think it would have been just a complete coast. And I didn't play with the second lab. I stopped the run at the second lab. I was just allocating to say, hey, we did the second lab on this character's progression. Now, let's talk a little bit about companions specifically. That was just saying, hey, this is the progression. This is what these Act 1 through 3 gear sets. I will make an Act 3 and beyond like companion transition recommendations. I'm going to work on that today, but that's just saying that's going to be our early game unless they nerf it. If they nerf it, I'll make an update and say, hey, we're going to do this instead. This is the next best option, something like that. But anyways, as for companion building blocks, a bit of power ideas behind the character. Number 1 is defense. Companions actually get access to quite a good defensive bonus, which is damage taken from the companion before you through things like the loyalty support gem, through the notable captivating companionship through Starkanjas or the legacy of Starkanja. There's a rune for this that they had on the filter list, which probably could have damage taken from companions for you. This will be huge for defense for us because it'll give us like 15 to 20, maybe 30 damage diversion to the companion instead of us, which is a big tank mod. And we can also maybe later on use Ramirez Requital for recoup. Connor tried to snitch on it and he might get it nerfed. We'll see if they decide to end up nerfing that, given his video about saying this is OP or whatever, but it would be quite strong. Another thing is just the clear, obvious early game. You need life on your gear pieces. You need to cap your res. And since we are on the evasion deflection side of the tree, probably getting some hybrid evasion energy shield will be our early to mid game angle. Late game, I think the strongest route is going to be Energy Shield, Heroic Tragedy. Heroic Tragedy is if we go for Giant's Blood strength scaling to get a two-hand mace to use with Katha's Blessing. But I need to basically feel out the changes. They nerfed a lot of the recharge sources. I still think Energy Shield's going to feel a lot stronger than life-based characters late game, but that's something I need to actually like get in game and test and try out to compare. Another thing is for offensive scaling, I went through and wrote down a few basics. I'm going to mute the background sound so there's stuff not playing while we're talking about this, which is basically just talking about some of the sources of scaling for the build. Companion damage, tree, jewels, scepter mods. This is your percent damage increase. Attack speed, there's not a lot of it. There's a bit on the tree now. There's some on scepters. There's some on jewels. There's things like you can get haste aura on your rare tame beast, which real quick, I want to actually talk about this in my run here where I went through and did this campaign run. I'll showcase it right about here. You'll notice this area, which is in the I'm trying to remember what the zone's even called. It's called the Infested Barrens. Yeah, the Infested Barrens zone. There is a camp which has a checkpoint, and it always spawns a It always spawns two rare beasts. It spawns a boar and an antelope. I decided to just take this one because it had Trail of Ice, which guarantees chilled ground for an extra damage multiplier on the twisters. But what I'd recommend doing is respawn a checkpoint. It always re-rolls the rare mods on the antelope and the boar. And we'd basically be fishing for haste aura, which is a 20% attack speed bonus to not only the companion that has the haste aura, but also to the unique companion, which we're trying to scale and multiply. So this is a great early game spot to get yourself a rare that has some decent mods, and that's something I would look into. Hence I mentioned the haste aura here for tame beast. Also, pounce, the more different allies you have from companions, or if you add in like, let's say, clerics or other minions, pounce makes enemies take increased damage. It's a nice damage multiplier. Intimidate from the companion bear. There's also things like gem level scaling. I listed a lot of the sources right here for ways to basically scale up their base stats, essentially. And then one of the more important things late game will be Katha's Blessing, I believe, where we get 60% of damage of our main hand applied to the companions. This is huge. Late game, I think the best option here is going to be a nice two-hand fizz weapon. It could also be a talisman with Lord of the Wilds, but I think Giant's Blood will be more ideal considering talisman is really far away. And I think it's just a bit weaker than two-hand mace, but I'll weigh out those options as I see how hard it is to get the attributes. As I'm building the character, I'll develop this plan a bit more efficiently. But yeah, that's kind of the rough idea of the offensive stuff. This is a work in progress on the build. We are going to be adding a lot of stuff to this as I do a little bit more theory crafting on it because they just gave us the new tree nodes this morning. I haven't had a really chance to look at it, so I'm going to do some planning based on that. And I will be updating things, like I'll be adding a better trading buy list to the first tab. I'll put it under the regex, which this regex is just for the early game spear leveling. It's showcasing movement speed, flat damage on things like gloves, and it's showcasing spears. So that's what this regex here is. This is just guy that dies twister regex. And yeah, so that's the rough plan for the build. Also, there will be I was told by the Mobalytics guys they will be adding a export option, which we will be able to use to get the build file. And that is going to be a work in progress on the Mobalytics side as they're trying to basically figure out how to fine tune taking basically the data from the build page and making it pretty in terms of format on the output of the build guide or build file for the in-game thing. Basically, just learning how it works, and they're going to adjust accordingly. But I think that should be working pretty well within a few days of League Start. If not, it'll work decently on League Start itself, I believe. So yeah, that's some of the stuff for my League Start plans. The plan right now is using Twister for OP leveling, get to the part where we become a Spirit Walker, and initially grab the Bear Lab. But on the second lab, we grab the Unique Tame. We go tame our Mighty Silver Fist, and then we swap all of our stuff over to companions. Initially, when you do that swap, we will still have some percent damage scaling because this node right here, all the companion damage will apply to our own character. You potentially could keep playing to like ease the transition with both twisters and companions, but I want to just get to the point where we're full companion based, and I'm going to work through that transition on League Start, seeing how we can make it through the campaign in a reasonable time and get those companions start dealing some decent damage. That's the rough game plan. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this little look at our plans for League Start, about the Spirit Walker, about the build we're going to be updating and whatnot. I'm really excited. We got a few days to go, and I'll try to do some more updates and polishing on this as I look through what kind of tree nodes we have, get a bit better plan going. This is one of the first times we've had the tree actually multiple days before the league start. So it's pretty exciting to actually be able to have a more concrete thing of like, this is what we're going to do for people that are interested in following the guide. I will, of course, be updating this build uh, daily is the plan, and regularly as I progress it on league start day. So that way you have something to follow if you want to follow the build, or if you're just looking for some inspiration for your own companion build. As always, thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care and peace out. Have a good one, guys.